guys, so I am back and I'm here with a review and demonstration for the CoverGirl Ready Set Gorgeous Foundation, which actually made it into my 2014 overall favorites. It's one of my favorite drugstore foundations, but it's also one of my favorite foundations overall. And I think it is a great choice for oily skin and for anyone that's on a budget and just wants a regular everyday foundation that they don't have to break the bank for. So we're gonna jump into the review and I'm going to do a demonstration and wear test as well so you can see how this foundation applies, how it fares on my skin, and kind of figure out if you want to go ahead and try this out yourself. So let's just get right into it. So first up, let's talk about the price because we want to know how much this costs, right? So as I mentioned, it's a drugstore foundation, so the price is going to vary, but the average cost is about $7.99. That's at Ulta Beauty. And you can find it at various different locations. Target has it for $6.99, so you can save $1 there. And then you can find it at CVS, Walmart, Walgreens, Rite Aid, those different kinds of drugstores. You can pretty much find this anywhere CoverGirl products are sold, and you can take advantage of sales. So you can get one, buy one, get one 50% off, or you can get 40% off all products, or you can get rewards points, you can use coupons, you can use various ways to save a couple of dollars on this, and it's already relatively inexpensive. It's kind of middle of the road for drugstore. It's coming in at $7.99, which I think is quite inexpensive, and you don't even have to compare it to high-end brands. You know you're saving a lot by getting a foundation at the drugstore for $7.99. So I think it's a great price point, and you do get the full 1 fluid ounce, which is typical across the board. 1 fluid ounce is the typical size of any liquid or kind of moussey foundation. So I think it's a great bargain. You can't go wrong, and there are 12 shades available. And the tricky thing about drugstore foundations, it's kind of hard to find your shade match, and you can't necessarily swatch in store, although some people do open up the package. So be careful. It does come with a protective seal on top. So if you're going to purchase it, open up the product, check to make sure the seal is still intact before you bring it home and find out if someone already tested it. But I got the shade 310 and 315. I'm in between these shades, so I do have to mix them, and there is one shade darker than 315, it's 320. So if you're a little bit darker than me, go for 315, and it even goes a little bit deeper into the 320 range. And the good thing about the price point is if you do have to buy 2 shades like I did to mix to get your perfect shade, it's $7.99 and you can buy one, get one 50% off. So you end up spending a little over $10 for 2 shades, which I think I don't have a problem with that. And that's one thing to keep in mind. Even if you do have to buy multiple shades to mix to find your perfect match, it's kind of still not going to break the bank because you're still paying under $15 for 2 shades. So the next thing I want to touch on is the packaging. And packaging is key when it comes to foundations, especially drugstore foundations, which it can be quite frustrating when you receive a packaging without a pump. But these come in squeeze tube. They're just plastic, regular plastic squeeze tubes. They have a white, pink, and black theme. You can actually see the product through the packaging itself, so you'll see when you're running low. And what you want to do is go ahead and squeeze the product around in the tube. I like to do that just in case the product kind of separates and you need to shake it up and, you know, mix everything around. I really like this kind of packaging. I find that it is more convenient than an actual pump, because sometimes with a pump you can pump too much out. With this, you have a very tiny hole at the opening that you can kind of squeeze out just the right amount that you need without wasting product. And because it is squeeze tube, you're less prone to contaminate the rest of the product as you can when you have like a jar where you have to dip in. This is kind of my favorite kind of packaging for foundation, even though it's not the fanciest, but I do think it's very, very functional. So before we jump into the demonstration and application, I just wanted to read off the product information so you can get an idea of what we can expect from this product. It says, 1 simple step for a flawless, natural look that lasts all day. The formula blends easily to even skin tone and reduces shine all day. It's oil-free, won't clog pores, it's suitable for sensitive skin, and it lasts all day. And then on the CoverGirl website it says, this liquid foundation's oil-free formula provides medium coverage to even skin tone and cover imperfections. The result is a flawless natural look that lasts all day. The built-in powder system fights against shine, pulling oil and sweat away from your face instead of trapping them under your foundation. So I have a lot of expectations for this just based on that information, so let's jump into the application. So as usual, I'm starting with bare skin, and I filled in my eyebrows and did mascara and all that, but I don't have anything else on my face. I didn't moisturize, I didn't do a primer or anything because I wanted to see the true wear of the foundation. So I'm going to grab the foundation, and I have two shades here. I have 310 Classic Tan and 315 Tawny. As you can see, 310 is just a little bit too light for me, and then Tawny is just way too dark. So I'm going to mix the two to get like a good shade to match me. And it's a squeeze tube, so what I'm going to do is I can just directly squeeze this on my face. And what I noticed is that this doesn't really separate, but you might still want to shake it or move the product around in the tube before applying it to your face, just to make sure that you mix everything together, the pigment and the base. So there you go, I just striped my face, and I'm going to go ahead and buff this over my skin using my Zoeva 104 buffer brush. And it's a really creamy foundation. It's not runny or liquidy, and it really doesn't have that powdery mousse finish that a lot of matte liquid foundations can have. I find that it is very smooth and creamy, but it's not overly creamy where you feel oily or anything, which I think is perfect. And I'm just gonna, blend that over my skin. The coverage, I should have left a part of my face so you could see, but the coverage is very nice. I don't really have a lot of hyperpigmentation or scarring on my skin. I just have uneven pigmentation, like I don't have even skin around my mouth. In different areas they're different shades, so I'm lighter towards the center, which is typical, and then darker on the outskirts, but then I also have patchy areas where the color isn't quite even. But I really don't have troublesome skin. I really don't have a lot of problems to cover, which is a good thing for me, but it's not the best to show coverage for foundation reviews. But I do have some areas that do need evening out. So that's mainly why I use foundation, to even out my skin and give me a nice even base to work with. And if you can tell, the foundation isn't matte. It doesn't dry matte. At least it didn't set down matte so far. I'll give it a little bit more time, but it leaves a very skin-like finish. I wouldn't call it a satin or a dewy finish. It's more of a true skin type finish, like a demi matte. And the coverage is really nice. It spreads nicely, buffs on really well. Of course, that will have to do with how you apply it and what tool you're using. If you're using a beauty blender, if you're using a brush, I use a buffing type brush to apply my foundation. I always do. I just love using brushes like this, kabuki style brushes, to really like blend the foundation over my skin. And really dense brushes are great for buffing the foundation in and making it look truly like skin. So I'll come in close so you can see the foundation on my skin. As you can see, mixing the two shades together actually gives me a pretty nice match, and they blend well together. Like, you don't see any separation on my neck. It blends really well, even by my hairline. So I think it blends really nicely. And I'll come in close so you can check out the texture on my skin. I usually have problem with foundation being a little bit cakey and showing up in the lines of my forehead. But with this one, it hasn't settled into lines. I don't see any powdery residue at all, which is a really good sign. So it doesn't accentuate pores or anything. I think this is really great coverage for what it is. So what I'm gonna do is powder one side of my face, as I usually do. I like to see how the foundations fare with powder and without. So I'm gonna powder just the right side of my face. I'm just using my Marc Jacobs powder because I didn't pick up any of the powders from the line. And I'm just gonna apply that on one side, making sure that I press the powder and then set the foundation in place. I'm just powdering my eyelids because my eyelids get really creasy and that is really not a test. But okay, so this side is powdered, this side isn't, and with the powder, it gives it a more matte finish, but this powder is really good for giving a natural finish without looking too cakey or powdery on my skin. So I think the finish matches up really good, and overall I think this is good. I'm gonna add a little bit more foundation on this side just because I have a little bit of a trouble area right here on this cheek. It's not too crazy, but it's just one of those things. So I'm just gonna see how this builds. Okay, so I would say the coverage is a light to medium buildable coverage. I wouldn't say it's a full coverage foundation because it's really not caking all over my face. It's not covering every single area, like my under eye circles or darkness is still there. It didn't cover everything. I don't look like I'm wearing a mask, and I don't have to do highlight and contour to add dimension back to my face. I can actually just wear this on its own without it looking cakey or like a mask. So I think overall I really love the finish. So we're gonna go ahead now, head out the door, go on with my day, and then we'll be back to check the wear test later on today. Alright guys, so I am back for my check-in and it's about 8 hours in. So we've worn this all day. I didn't come back for a 4-hour check-in because everything still looked pretty decent then. So I decided just to hold out until the end of the day. And as you can see, my T-zone did get oily, like my forehead area and my nose, which is typical, and it's like throughout these different wear tests for foundations as I'm doing these videos that my nose decided it needs to do the most. So I do have oil breaking through on my nose, and I'll zoom in so you can see. So as you can see in my T-zone area, specifically in my nose region, there's some oil breaking through, and this foundation actually holds up pretty well with the oils in my skin. It hasn't like broken through and separated the foundation too much, even though on my nose you will see some separation. And I had a pretty full day today. I was in the heat, I was in the snow, I was scraping off my car, I was driving in the snow, I was going back and forth. So I had a full day. And this for me would be a very good foundation, a very good result, considering this is 8 hours of wear without touching up, without blotting, without powder. So this is the side that we powdered, which actually looks more greasy than the side that we didn't powder, believe it or not. So this would definitely need some blotting. About 6 hours in, I'd need to blot, which I don't have an issue with because with my oily skin, I've just accepted that I need to blot at least once or twice in the day. So overall, I think it still looks pretty decent with some blotting needed, and I could freshen this up, but it wears pretty decent on my skin. And with a lighter layer, I find that it does even better, and with a primer it does even that much better. So I would suggest, if you have oily skin like I do, use a primer, use this foundation, use some powder, set it down, and just bring your powder for touch-up, because you might need to touch up, but it still wears really good for a drugstore foundation. So I'm going to go ahead now and wrap up the review. So now that you've seen the application and the demonstration and the wear test, you kind of see what you can expect from this foundation. So I'm just going to run down what I think of the formulation, what I think you can expect. And as I mentioned before, I completely love this foundation. I think it is great for oily skin, combination skin, normal skin, and even, I would even go so far as to say dry skin, because it is an oil-free formula. It's very lightweight, but it's very liquidy and creamy. I don't see this as a drying foundation. It doesn't leave a powdery finish on my skin. It applies very smoothly and evenly on the skin without being overly creamy because it is oil-free, so it's a very lightweight foundation. It's not really moussey, it's more of a liquidy foundation. It applies beautifully to the skin, blends in nicely. It doesn't accentuate any dry spots on my skin, which I find that some oil-free foundations, some mattifying foundations can. This one applies very, like, it leaves this great natural demi-matte finish. It's not going to give you a glowy finish. You'd have to add your glow after, but I find that it gives a very natural finish. Again, it is lightweight. It doesn't feel heavy on the skin, but don't be fooled that you won't feel it. You feel foundation on your skin, period. I think it blends nicely with any brush, with any beauty blender. You can even apply this with your fingers to really blend it into the skin. And I find that I don't need to set it with a powder. Even though I still set my foundations with a powder, I don't need to set this with a powder to get long-lasting all-day wear. I didn't set this with a powder. I came back after a full day and I had minimal shine. And I don't mind having a little bit of shine, especially for a drugstore foundation at this price point. I don't mind blotting a little bit. If you use a mattifying primer with this, if you're really oily, and you apply a little bit of powder, it's gonna last all day. It doesn't look cakey, it looks absolutely gorgeous, and again, it's buildable, so it does cover imperfections. If you do have really troublesome skin and you do have troublesome spots, you may need to go in with a little bit of concealer, but that's what concealer is for. You don't want to cake on foundation. So I think overall, this is a great foundation. It's great for summertime because you want that lightweight finish, but you don't want to be oily and greasy and look like a grease slick. The only thing I'd complain about would be the shade range. And it just comes with the Terry drugstore. I kind of expect it. They don't go really deep, so if you're really deep skin, you're not going to find your match hair. But if you're like medium deep to medium light, I don't know if they go super porcelain light, so you might not find your shade there. But if you do luck out and find your shade, or even if you have to buy 2 shades and mix them to get a perfect match, the price point still makes it a bargain. So I think it's a great foundation. I think if you have oily combination skin, it's a great find for the summertime. It's an everyday foundation. You don't have to break the bank. You can wear this every day and save your higher end foundations for special occasions. So hopefully this review and demonstration helped you guys out. And let me know if you've tried this out and how you feel about it. And I'll leave links below, and you can follow me along on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and links where you can find this. And yeah, let me know what you think, and on to my next video, which will be very soon. I'll talk to you. Bye!